In this video, I'm going to cover how to get a DJ residency, how to keep your DJ residency once you've got it, and how to use your residency to build your fan base. But as well as that, I'm mainly going to cover how to keep your DJ sets original every single week when playing to the same audience. So firstly, if you want a DJ residency, there are different ways to go about it. And personally, one way is to just start your own nightclub event, which I've got videos on and I'll link that in now, okay? But if you do start your own club event, you can bill yourself as the resident DJ there. Now, personally, I started my own weekly club event back in 1999, and because I had a really clear vision of how I wanted the event to go, you know, I became a DJ and I billed myself as the #1 resident. And I'll be honest, it's not uncommon for promoters to DJ at their own events, and even some of my students that now run their own events, namely the Twisted guys and even the crew from Club Ready Radio and Funk My Life, they too build themselves on the lineups, and honestly, why not, okay? They're the main draw and they're bringing the energy that make the event possible in the first place. Now, personally, I ran my own weekly club events every single week, sometimes 3 events per week down the east coast of Australia for 17 plus years, okay? And honestly, I only really offered residencies to one, okay, my friends and people who I wanted to work with. And that happens a lot, okay, especially when you've got like a little crew that you work with, and why not, you know, share it with your friends. But number 2, I also gave residencies to established DJs that may have done a guest spot at my club and I thought, wow, man, that'd be a really good fit for what we do. And 3, also regulars at the club that may be fairly new to DJing, but perhaps they've expressed an interest to play. And I thought the fact they were already regulars and part of the club scene and the culture I was trying to create, honestly makes them an ideal fit. And that's probably going to be your best bet for lots of people watching this video. So here's the thing, right? When you first go to a club, you may not even notice that a DJ, like a scene, exists, but the more often you go, the more you start to recognize the same faces, and in time, undoubtedly, the more friends you make. And I remember the first club I ever went to, right? I fell in love with the atmosphere and I honestly became obsessed. So I started going every single week, and before long, I guess you could say I was part of that scene, okay? I was immersed in it, okay? But in truth, at that stage of my life, I wasn't even thinking about running a nightclub or being a DJ, right? But after a few years of being involved in that scene, the promoters that were running the events took a bit of a break and they didn't tell anyone, right? They just sort of disappeared, and I all of a sudden had nowhere to go, and I thought, oh wow, there's a gap in the market here. And I started getting these ideas, and I just decided to start my own event. And because I was familiar with that scene, I knew what people wanted, so I filled a much needed gap in the market. And as a result, my nightclubs took off very quickly, actually. See, that's the thing, right? People sometimes expect ideas and inspirations to just come out of nowhere, okay? And they wonder why they're lacking ideas and lacking motivation when perhaps they've fallen into the habit of sort of going to work and coming home and just spending any spare time they have relaxing in front of the TV with a cold one or something, okay? When really, right, ideas and inspirations come from putting yourself into situations that may be at first considered like uncomfortable, okay? So if you really want a DJ residency or even just to get a DJ gig, the first step is to immerse yourself in clubbing culture and ideally get to know the people involved in running the events, from the bar staff to the door girl to the promoters, and even support the other DJs. Just be friendly, get to know people. Now, you first need to find though a club that does feel right to you and also feels accessible, like you could actually play there. And that may mean a weekend of club and bar hopping for a bit. But when you do find a venue that speaks to you, and that means you might start getting ideas, just do your best to support it. And personally, I might even take it a step further and not only attend like with friends as often as I can, but I'd also start showing up on the social media pages of the promoters and DJs and share their posts and just be generous with support without wanting anything in return, at least in the short term. Now, this gives you time to get a feel for the event and ideally become one of the regulars. By knowing the people that you want to work with, okay, means when you express an interest to play, they kind of know you, okay? And if you submit a mix that's on point with what they do and you're available at the drop of a hat, okay, then chances are you're going to get a shot. And if you can play to your time slot, meaning you're not going to hop on at 9 o'clock and play all the headliners' favorite tracks, okay? There's a political side to this. But if you're, reliable and you know how to play to your time slot, you could get repeat shows, and quite often that morphs into a residency. Now, can I just quickly ask a favor though, from all the people watching this that already have residencies, do you reckon you could share in the comments below how you became a resident DJ? Now, I would honestly love to hear all your stories, and by sharing, it also gives the people yet to score a residency a better understanding how it works, and they too can learn from, I guess, your hits and misses. So please jump in the comments on this. It's an important video. So anyway, for the residents though, before I jump into how to make your sets, like your weekly sets, feel original and creative, if you do want to keep your residency, okay, it's not about turning up to your show 5 minutes before your set and leaving straight after. No doubt it's about being part of the club scene which you reside, okay? Now, that means arriving early, staying late, okay? And if a DJ doesn't show up, or perhaps they're too wasted to play, okay, this stuff happens, okay? You can be ready at any given moment to jump on and play extra sets, or you can play overtime if needed, and you want to, you know, you're craving to do that. Put it this way, right? You want to put off the impression that you love the event and you're going to be there whether or not you're playing, okay? Now, I know for many people, right, that sounds like a nightmare, okay? But to be a resident DJ means to be consistent. And if you don't like the idea of clubbing every single weekend, then perhaps you're better off doing some one-off shows, okay? And making your shows big feature events where you can showcase your sound and turn it into a big party, and just throw a few events or be part of a few events in your kind of community a few times a year. But again, that's another topic entirely, which, mind you, I can cover it for you, right? If there's enough interest in the comments. Okay, so now for the big one. Let's say you've scored your residency. The real skill is finding a balance between the tracks that you know people love, they're there for, okay? But also incorporating new material or tracks that haven't been played in some time to keep each night and each set you do feeling fresh and not so repetitive, okay? See, in truth, this is the challenge that, like, you know, lots of residents face. And I personally remember once this guy came up to me, right, adamant that I should mix up the music more, and he made some suggestions of what he felt was great tracks that never got played, and against my better judgment, I made the mistake of taking his advice, right? Like, I took it to heart, okay? And worse, I followed his suggestions, and never before have I seen a dance floor clear so fast. See, his issue was making the mistake of letting personal preference come into it, and he didn't have the experience to understand the nature of dance floor dynamics, okay? Now, at this, I shouldn't have listened. I do understand, but I don't know what happened. But anyway, at this specific event, by trying something new and off-center to what we usually did in a quest to educate my crowd and be diverse, right, the night lost momentum quickly. And in truth, that night I struggled to make a recovery. It fully threw me off, okay? See, here's the thing, right? At the majority of clubs and even house parties, right, the big well-known tracks, okay, that everyone knows usually get the best response. However, the B-sides are usually only for the diehards of that genre, and by playing less known tracks, it usually minimizes response on the floor. But then, if you only play the same hits week in, week out, it all gets super repetitive, goes a little bit mainstream maybe, and if you stray too far from the big tracks though, of that genre, then your dance floor can lose energy, and the night, honestly, could lose momentum. Okay, so what's the solution? So this is what I did, okay? So every week I would aim to make constant and never-ending improvements to my playlist, like to my sets, okay? So meaning, let's say I played last weekend and I worked from a master playlist I made especially for that event. Let's call it, for this case, playlist 1, okay? Well, then what I'd do is I'd copy that playlist into a new playlist, and let's call that playlist 2. So I've still got playlist 1, but now I've got playlist 2, a copy of that same playlist. But then I'd do some research that week between events, and I'd add new tracks to the bottom of that new playlist. And then what I'd do is I'd then rearrange the entire playlist and come up with new combos and an entirely new arrangement. See, what it means is I would still have in that playlist all the big tracks that I know people responded to from playlist 1, but I'm rearranging them every single week and always adding the latest tracks, as well as doing my best to seek out old anthems that people may not have heard in some time. Now, the best way to find the anthems is either be researching all the time. You know, you could actually Google, okay, all-time anthems, okay, of specific genres, or you can even listen to other DJs for inspirations and just see what they play. And sometimes they put in a song you wouldn't expect, it gets a great response, and that's an idea. That's something that you could do. Now, that means so every single week I've built a new playlist for each specific event, and that playlist, in my opinion, is a new and improved version of the previous week's playlist. And it also means each week the subsequent playlist just gets bigger and bigger, and you get more and more options to choose from. But because I'm also saving all my past playlists, it means if my latest playlist isn't working, I can always revert to a past playlist that may have had a different feel, or perhaps it may even have some old combos I haven't done in some time that, you know, I'm like, oh, wow, let's bust that out. That'd be cool tonight. And it just gives you more options. And personally, I remember once, right, I just launched a new event in Sydney called White Rabbit, and honestly, it was the best opening night I've ever experienced, with over 4,000 people showing up. And I honestly I knew it was going to be big, so I put together one of the best headline sets of my life, which, mind you, as mentioned in a video like a few weeks back now, I'll link it in now, but I didn't play a set from start to finish. Like, you've always got to be flexible, and I had some combos planned, but I also need to respond to what the crowd is vibing with on that night. But post-event, right, everyone was raving about how good the event was and how good the music was. And I remember, right, 1 year later, meaning, right, I'd reworked that playlist 52 times, constantly reworking and adding to it every single week for a year. Anyway, I thought to myself for the anniversary, maybe I should go back and do that opening night playlist again. But when I looked at that opening night playlist, I thought, even though that set was amazing at the time, the music that had come out in the past year, and, you know, the progress I'd even made to that original playlist over a year, was honestly too good. And it felt like, to me, like going back and playing a set I did like over a year ago was a massive step back, and I decided not to do it. So if you have a DJ residency, this would be my advice. You have to aim for constant and never-ending improvements with your sets every single week, with the goal that over time, right, your sets just become like this, you know, masterpiece of colossal proportions. And the first step to doing that, this is your template in a way. You got to start by knowing what tracks work best at that venue, and then every single week add new and back catalog stuff, and try to find the balance between the tried and tested with new music, right? And also past anthems that suit the vibe of that specific event. Now, it's not about reinventing the wheel every single week. It's just about making that same wheel a little bit different, but at the same time not so different that it no longer turns and fails to get people moving. Okay, personally, I think that's pretty good advice, okay? But moving forward, as for using your residency as an opportunity to build your own fan base, and here's the thing, man, if you're part of a DJ scene and you're arriving early, staying late, you're interacting with the staff and the other DJs, the promoters, and even the crowd, right? Even perhaps dancing and supporting the other DJs, and you're a part of that scene, then trust me, right, building a fan base is going to happen very quickly and naturally for you. But my advice is, you want to get social proof these days and post videos and photos that capture the energy of your sets, as this not only entices new people to come and check you out, which in turn, that helps out the promoter, right, which is always a good thing to do, but it also draws attention to your success and helps people put a name to a face, so they go from being, oh, that DJ that plays at such and such, to, hey man, that's Andrew, man, he plays here every week. I'll introduce you later. Now just remember, if you land a DJ residency, to you, you're just there doing what you love, but for the regulars of the club, there is a good chance that they admire you. They may even look up to you, especially if they love the way that you DJ. So never, ever, ever doubt the power of being kind to people, and take every single opportunity you can to interact with the crowd. So be it even when you play, you might even be like, hey, you know, or, you know, even before, and hang around after your set, you know, talk to people. And if you have the ability to make everyone you speak to feel like they're an integral part of that club, like that scene, then this kind of thinking has the power to make a club scene feel like a family. And attending the club can become a big part of that person's life, something that they look forward to every week. I see this all the time, okay? A place where they feel like they belong, home away from home. And as I love to say, you should use your events as a chance to connect like-minded people through creating atmospheres that unite and make them want to return every single week. Now, some people may think this is silly, but being a DJ often comes with a certain level of local fame. So sure, allow it to help you to become more confident, but don't become an asshole. Okay, that happens to a lot of people. It goes to their head. So, okay, now personally, I remember when I first started clubbing, right, way before I ever thought about running events and being a DJ. Okay, at the club that I was frequenting at the time, there's this DJ that played, and he was always cool, man. He knew what songs I liked. He knew I was there every week. He used to hang out with us after his set, and for a wannabe scene kid like me, okay, honestly, it meant the world to me. So I did the best possible promo for him, positive word of mouth, and I always supported him. So if you want to build a fan base, which means more support when you play, never ever underestimate the power of making people feel significant, but do it honestly and earnestly. Be openly kind and appreciative that people are actually there to support you. And by doing so, your popularity and influence will grow. And what happens is you hit the deck. Say you're coming on for a headline set, you've earned it. People are there for you, and the dance floor, honestly, it just fills immediately and it erupts. And honestly, the promoters will be speechless. And if you're not already a resident by bringing that kind of energy to their event, you soon will be. Now, the energy in clubs and playing to packed rooms is like nothing I could ever express in words, okay? Honestly, it's a magical experience that honestly knocks down people's barriers and it unites them all together. But on the other hand, there is a shadow side to it all. And I recently had a student reach out to me in tears after a bad show. So let me know if you want to hear the advice I gave her on how to deal with bad shows. As the truth is, like, the good are good, but you know, the bad shows can be soul crushing and can honestly make you want to quit. And if you've got a residency, no doubt you'll know exactly what I was just talking about, the highs and lows of being a DJ, like they're intense. So the life of a DJ is honestly super interesting. There's so much more to it than learning to beat match. And honestly, as you probably know by now, I love the psychological and even philosophical side of it all. And hopefully that's portrayed in these videos. And anyway, hopefully that sort of sets me apart. But anyway, thanks for watching. I love sharing my experience with you all. And if you're already a resident, please share your own stories in the comments below for everyone's benefit. Anyway, thanks again, guys. Cheers.